Thank you very much. My name is Jeff Seemans. I'm from Milton, Delaware. I was going to speak later, but I think this might be a good time for me to speak now, given the final slide that Chris just ended on. But before I get into my presentation, which will be very short, I want to thank you for the opportunity to speak about this critically important ordinance today. By way of introduction, I am a resident of Milton, Delaware, and a retired registered landscape architect. I was registered to practice for 31 years. Over my entire 42-year career, I was employed as a planner for Newcastle County Department of Planning, 2 different consulting, engineering, surveying, and land planning firms. And I spent the last 22 years of my career as land resource manager for a private family-owned builder and real estate developer. I want to comment on only 2 items today. But first, I want to thank you for supporting this ordinance conceptually, and to the members of the working group for the many, many hours of their time that they gave to help produce the ordinance in its current form. The first item I would like to discuss is enforcement of this ordinance, and this picks up on the last slide that Chris showed you. By my reading, there is no current section describing any penalties for the intentional or accidental destruction of these critically important wetland buffers. From my experience, there are 5 entities that could do damage to these buffers. Number 1, a developer/flipper. Number 2, a builder. Number 3, a rogue or careless site contractor. Number 4, an HOA. And number 5, a lot owner/homeowner. Especially after all of the time spent on this ordinance, it would be an affront to this county council and the members of the working group if these buffers are intentionally or even accidentally disregarded and destroyed. My suggestion is that you add a new separate section on enforcement and penalties. I suggest 3 major components. And component number 1 is so simple, and I don't think it's included in this ordinance at all, and it is so simple to include, and I think it could have such a positive impact on the preservation of these buffer areas. Component number 1 should be the requirement of actual posted physical signs. The Critical Area Buffer Resources Guide of the State of Maryland describes a subsection entitled Buffer Signs. And it reads, before an applicant records a final subdivision that includes a buffer or expanded buffer, the applicant shall, number 1, post permanent signs delineating the upland boundary of the buffer with at least 1 sign per lot or 1 for each 200 linear feet of shoreline, whichever is applicable. And number 2, design each sign so that it, A, is at least 11 inches in width and 15 inches in height, is placed at a height of 4.5 feet, but not attached to a tree, and C, clearly states critical area buffer, no clearing or disturbance permitted. These buffer areas should be forever. But if we expect everyone that I listed above, plus future home buyers, to know where the buffer lines are by only referring to a final plat plan, then may God help us all. I have attached 2 examples from the Critical Areas Guide, and these are right out of the guide. The first one, as you can see, and I'll give you copies of this. Critical area buffer, this area protected to improve water quality and habitat important to Tidal Waters in Maryland. Do not disturb. Violators are subject to fines up to $10,000 as imposed by subsection 8-1808 of the Natural Resources Article of the Annotated Code of Maryland. So this is an example of the sign in that guide. And there's also another example regarding long-term protection, and that's also attached. Component number 2 should be financial penalties for the cutting of trees or shrubs within the prescribed wetland buffers or the illegal filling or hard surface construction within the buffers. I suggest a dollar amount per square foot of disturbance if, for example, filling or hard surface construction has taken place. Dollar amounts per tree which has been cut would be difficult to calculate if the tree and its stump have both been removed. So you would have lost the caliper of the tree, and if you base the fine based on the caliper, you would have lost all that with the tree being cut and the stump being removed. But the financial penalty should be high enough to get someone's attention. And I would suggest that, not that it has to be this figure, but when I read the bottom of this sign, violators are subject to fines up to $10,000, that got my attention. Component number 3 should be the removal of any illegal fill or hard surface construction and mitigation replanting. The aforementioned guide from the state of Maryland suggests a 4-to-1 mitigation ratio for any penalty for a violation. Finally, my second suggestion is to foreshorten the effective date. Currently, Section 13 of the current ordinance has it as 6 months after adoption by Sussex County Council. I think that is too long, and too many applications will be filed to get in under the wire. The net result will be more lost trees. I suggest that it take effect immediately upon adoption. Thank you for your time and attention. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there are any.
Thank you.